Hello there guys, what is going on? Daniel Charles back here again for another show. It is Tuesday the 4th of July. Independence Day to my American viewers and listeners. Hope you've had a brilliant day. Also, from a Chelsea point of view, more importantly, it's the day Chelsea players started to return to Cobham for pre-season training. We got pics, we got videos, and it was interesting to see who returned, to go through some of the stuff that has been reported. In today's show, we will react to that. Also, some of the stuff that Pochettino did on his first day yesterday at Chelsea, apart from the interview that we broke down in yesterday's show. We will also look about the bomb squad, that being the players that Chelsea still need to sell before the season gets underway and before this transfer window closes. Also, we will look at Callum Hudson-Odoi, a lot of stuff around his future recently, so we'll dive into that. If you are new around here, want to see the latest Chelsea content, please do hit that like button, really does help the show out. Also, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on. I do want to say a massive thank you because we hit over 32,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for those who helped get us over the line for that landmark. Now it's on to 40k, but thank you so much for your support. Really does mean a lot, and glad you're enjoying and interacting with the content. But let's get into it. So pre-season training, still very early days, filtering back of players, those not involved in internationals, but we saw quite a few faces, interesting ones, new ones from last season. And I think that the first thing, I got to give credit to CFC Daily. He tweeted this, and I think he makes a good point here that when you look at the group of players that returned today, I do think that the big thing that is the takeaway, and this is credit to sort of the clear out that we've had, it feels like the first time in a very long time that the majority of the faces that have returned feel like they should be there. Like, there aren't many players, once again, there are obviously going to be some academy players involved who may not be with the first team squad for the entirety of the season, but, there aren't ones that are clearly just have no future at the club. There's no Marco Marins, there's no Davide Zappacosta's, there's no Michy Batshuayi's lingering, there's no Kennedy. There's none of those players that just simply have not been sold, have not been moved on. That is a real positive. And just going through some of the names we did see today: Ben Chilwell, Reece James, Ian Maatson, Marc Cucurella, Bashir Humphries, Thiago Silva, Trevor Chalobah, Cesare Casadei, Andrey Santos, Raheem Sterling. Those were the names that were reported online, but we did see pictures of Armando Broja, still recovering from his injury, but great to see him close to fitness again. We also saw Lewis Hall. There was this brilliant picture from training that I'll put up now inside the gym at Cobham, where Thiago Silva, the veteran player, the legend of the game, sort of leading this young group of Chelsea players behind him, and that did include Lewis Hall, who wasn't mentioned there. So I'm really excited. I think with the way Pochettino is going to work with some of these players, the ones that stand out to me that I'm most intrigued by of how they're going to be used, how much of a role they're going to play, is the likes of Ian Maatson. What's happening with him? I really would like to see what they did with Kalidou Koulibaly. Can you get a fee of some kind for Marc Cucurella? He's probably the only one today that you look at and go, yeah, probably shouldn't be there, or maybe deserves a future, or kind of get a future elsewhere, and when you look at the quality Ian Maatson could provide as a backup to Ben Chilwell, I think it would be really exciting. But then also in a midfield sense, Cesare Casadei and Andrey Santos, Chelsea worked so hard to get Andrey Santos that visa. Even after January, that there is a lot of hype around Santos internally. It isn't just what people have seen on sort of clips on Twitter with what he's been doing with Brazil, because of course that's very impressive, but it seems like internally there is a real push to make him a first team player this season. You don't want to just throw him into the fire if he isn't ready, if he needs some seasoning, if he needs some coaching. Obviously, that is going to be important under Mauricio Pochettino, and why we still need to sign players like Moises Caicedo in central midfield. But I think it's going to be really exciting to see what Santos could do under a coach like Pochettino. And the same with Casadei. I still think a few of these players will likely have to go on loan, because there just isn't enough football in the season, unfortunately, because we don't have European football, and it may just be beneficial for their development. I know the current ownership is wanting to lean away from loads and loads of loans, but I think sometimes with especially young players, do you want them just sat on the bench for a year? Do you want to get them out there having first team football? Really beneficial for their development, and also what you could gain from getting them back in the future. If you, of course, getting that loan right is also important, because we have seen Chelsea get that wrong with some young talents. in recent years. I want to move on now to something Pochettino did last night. Apparently he had a barbecue with Chelsea staff, football and non-football, on Monday to get to know Pochettino and his travelling backroom staff. This was reported by Matt Law. Apparently this is something he did pretty regularly at Tottenham. It was a tactic of his, and apparently one member of staff who was there said it was a great touch and a really good way for the head coach to introduce himself. It was very relaxed. Just seeing some of the photos, I mean, I can understand why. Someone else, I saw a tweet of this today saying that, maybe Lukaku might think twice, and maybe some players might think twice about leaving Chelsea when they're seeing potential food on offer. But this was for, of course, non-playing staff. But it's a small thing. We see a lot of coaches do this type of thing, whether it's, Tuchel, I believe there was a story of him going into the academy building and speaking to academy staff very early on when he arrived at Chelsea, brought in a bunch of German beers, Pilsner, which of course is a very nice gesture to kind of relax things and get to know those people. So it's not exactly unique, but I think it says and it reflects maybe that culture that Pochettino is needing to build at Stamford Bridge. And I think it was a nice gesture for those who maybe aren't involved in these type of occasions very often. So I think that was an interesting thing to see. Another point and another piece from Matt Law today that's probably more relevant to transfer stuff is Pochettino has 1 week to sell Chelsea's bomb squad, as he titles it, of want-away players. While Chelsea have successfully shipped out a number of want-away players this summer to cut down the squad for Pochettino, there is still work to do. Deals are yet to be agreed for the sales of Romelu Lukaku, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic, all of whom want to leave Chelsea. The foursome make up a bomb squad of players who the club want to sell before they start to return for pre-season training at Chelsea's Cobham Complex next Wednesday. The bomb squad is obviously a reference to Pochettino's very early days at Spurs with some of the experienced players that he did very quickly filter out in his first season and had some problems with them, and then very much created the young team that people knew. So I understand where that reference is from. I hate to kind of, single them out as kind of antagonists or anything. It's just, I really don't like that attitude, but it's about for their own futures as well, clarifying that. I think that we're in a very healthy position. I really do think that we have done the bulk of this work at the right time. To expect all of it to be done by now was always going to be unrealistic, but the fact that a majority of it has been done, I think is some credit. Of course, maybe some could argue, and probably rightly in some aspects, cleaning up a mess that the current ownership made, but there are also other players that they have let go who have been here a lot longer. But for those, I think for Lukaku, I can't see him returning. I do think there is a deal to be made there with Inter Milan. I still don't know why there can't be something done with Andre Onana. Maybe I'm being naive and unrealistic, but I think that'd be maybe something that a deal could be made there. Aubameyang, I'm surprised something from Barcelona hasn't been talked about, but Hakim Ziyech, obviously, I mean, he's going on socials now and basically sort of saying that his knees are fine because apparently he had a failed medical. There was some medical red flags apparently with his move to Saudi Arabia, and that's why it is fallen through. It may still happen. Apparently, he's been offered a smaller wage. Whether he accepts that or not is hard to know. And Christian Pulisic, obviously, Lyon and AC Milan interested in him. I think for all these players, it's just about getting them off the books as quickly as possible because you don't want what looks like a very youthful group to be undermined by players who just don't want to be here. And that's what Pochettino said. He was very, very firm in that quote last night where he said, we need leaders, we don't need followers, and he wants players that are going to be committed to the Chelsea project. And I think all of these players here, for varying reasons, clearly aren't that at the moment. They want to go elsewhere, so it's on the club now, it's on the hierarchy to get those deals over the line so they don't cause problems over what should be a very productive and positive pre-season. The final thing to speak about is Callum Hudson-Odoi. Apparently wants to leave Chelsea this summer now. Simon Johnson reporting this for The Athletic. Hudson-Odoi, of course, made his debut for Chelsea in Jan 2018 and has gone on to make 126 appearances. He has won the Champions League, Europa League, FIFA Club World Cup and UEFA Super Cup during his time with the senior squad. But Hudson-Odoi feels the time has come to move to a club where he has a better chance of regular first-team football. Apparently Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, Fulham and AC Milan are among the clubs who are interested. A transfer fee to seal Hudson-Odoi's departure has still to be agreed, but the winger is expecting to resolve his future soon so he can prepare for the season at his new club. Not that much of a surprise from a contract point of view. This was on the horizon for a while because down to the final 2 years, he went on loan to Bayer Leverkusen, didn't set the world alight. But even if it went better for him at Bayer Leverkusen, I did kind of think the writing was on the wall for Callum that it probably will be the end. And I think all those options there are quite exciting. I do think there is a talent there. I really do. I think he has struggled a lot with injury, which of course is always it sounds obvious, a very detrimental thing, and especially for a young player who is still trying to find maybe even his best position on the pitch, is that as a left winger. I know very early on at Bayer Leverkusen he was tried as a 10 in a 4-2-3-1, which I can understand why, because of some of it, the way he can pass in the final third. But all of those clubs there, I think he stays in the Premier League. I think Forest would be a good option for him. I would love to, and this is just once again, AC Milan for Kyle Tomori, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Olivier Giroud. There'd be a lot of reasons to watch AC Milan from a Chelsea perspective next year. And maybe just for him as well. I think maybe getting out the England bubble maybe was good for him. I think he said as much, early in his time at Bayer Leverkusen. So AC Milan might be the place for him. But, I don't know how many more players AC Milan are going to take off our hands. Gary Neville may start to get very suspicious if AC Milan come in for more than 2 Chelsea players, and may start to think there's something fishy going on and come up with another theory about Chelsea. So we will see. And I think for Callum, it just makes a lot of sense at the moment. It makes sense for Chelsea too. Again, we get back to that very core argument and very core principle that should be happening this summer. If you don't want to be here, it's best we let you go, rather than keeping players who are not going to be fully committed. Because the way Pochettino is going to set up this team, he needs players that are going to be fully committed. So that is it for today's news show. There has been some kind of talk around Moises Caicedo. I said this last week. It's going to take time because Brighton are going to want to extract a absolutely huge fee for him. A big fee. I don't think it's going to go up to 100. I could see it being over 80, but it will take time. But it is such a key thing for Chelsea to get over the line. I still don't think that trading players is a good idea in this scenario. I really don't. Whether that is Levi Colwell, whether that is someone else. I just personally think if you want the player, you have to pay a premium for him. And we will see if Chelsea are willing to do that. But then if they don't, I would like to think the club is going to be proactive enough and shrewd enough to move to other targets if they get the whiff that, there's going to be no movement on Caicedo and they're going to be asked to pay ridiculous money for him. Some may think that is absolutely worth it. I think as a profile he fits, but there should be alternatives in this area because Chelsea can't go another summer without signing a defensive-minded midfielder. I think it'd just be really detrimental to Pochettino's plans. Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.